What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, we know the mainstream news, the news media in the United States is, they're fake. They lie a lot. But the thing is, they love to manipulate. They love to portray themselves as the truth bringers, right? We are the news. But the fact is, they love to manipulate everything, like I was saying, and they try to bring to you a narrative to try to push something that, we all try to buy into, but we can't because it's divorced from reality, and these people can't seem to understand that we have eyes, we have brains, we can put all this information together and see that, hang on, they just lied. Now, this is the narrative. Donald Trump is evil, he's an orange man, and he's bad, right? So this is what they try to put out, but they do it in such a way to make you think that hang on, are they correct? So this is the narrative.
Trump's first public reaction to the deadly attack in New Orleans came at 10:48 Eastern time yesterday morning. The incoming president wrote on his social media site, quote, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media. But it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that no one has ever seen before," end quote. He went on to offer his condolences to the victims and to praise New Orleans law enforcement. But everything that came before that that little bit at the end was pure misinformation. Trump insinuated that the attacker was a criminal coming into the country, but the alleged killer was a natural-born U.S. citizen and a United States Army veteran. As my colleague Steve Bannon points out today, in just one missive, the president-elect managed to flunk three important tests for the commander-in-chief. First, he flunked a test of accuracy, pushing misinformation within hours of a deadly attack. Second, he flunked a test of decency, trying to exploit the attack to advance an ugly and misguided agenda. And third, Trump flunked a test of credibility, reminding everyone anew that when tragedy strikes, Americans just can't count on the incoming president for reliable and trustworthy information. Joining us now is Tim Miller, host of the Bulwark podcast. He's also a resident of New Orleans.
So there it is. How dare the incoming president of the United States just put out this blanket misinformation and try to exploit a situation where these poor people coming across the southern border, they just want a better lives. They're fleeing from the hellscape that is the country that they came from. That's the narrative. How could Donald Trump exploit this when this is just complete disinformation, right? Or is it, right? In the same video, they go on to debunk themselves, which is great, but that's what they're trying to portray right here is, oh, Donald Trump is just bad. Yeah, I got another clip. I got several clips coming in for you guys. Yeah, no Piers Morgan debate today. Smash that like button, by the way, and subscribe to this channel if you're new around here and want to stay up to date with how you're being manipulated by these very people. I've got another video coming up about more media manipulation. Of course, that's almost every video I put out, but getting back to the fact, right? So the insinuation here is that Donald Trump is trying to insinuate that this guy came across the border. Well, hang on. That's not true, is it? Ow, I just had a pop in my neck. Sorry about that. That hurt. But that's not true, is it? No, that's not true. He was from Texas. Yeah, he was an American citizen. Well, hang on. The guy had an ISIS flag, by the way. Yeah, I'm not refuting that he was an American citizen, but how was he exactly radicalized by ISIS in Texas? Wonder that. I wonder if that has anything to do with all these people coming across the southern border, right? Knowing that we've allowed over 300 known terrorists into this country. That's the ones that we know about. Now, who is to say, this is pure speculation, but who is to say that these people, these terrorists that we know about, aren't radicalizing American citizens? Just saying. I'm just saying. I'm not putting out a narrative. Just saying, how do we know this? We don't know this, right? But to insinuate that the border is not a problem is just pure, misinformation. Yes, as a matter of fact, the border is a major problem. So Donald Trump's statement, if you look at the statement itself, there's nothing wrong with the statement outright, but there is an insinuation that the guy that committed the terror attack in New Orleans came across the southern border. Now, I wonder why he would insinuate this when it's clearly disinformation when it comes from Donald Trump. It's not just misinformation, it's disinformation, because he knows outright that that guy didn't come across the border. But like I said, in that same video, they debunk themselves, but it's hard to notice. See if you pick up on it. Check this out.
Sometimes there is reason for people in public positions of public trust to give out information that's not fully developed, right? Like, for example, in this case, there was concerns that there might have been IEDs in other places in the French Quarter. And so, during the press conference, the FBI and the governor and were speaking about that. And that was important for those of us who live here, to know that there's maybe still risk out there. It turned out that was not the case. Thank God. But so sometimes there's reason to put out half information, in a developing situation. There is never reason to smear random groups of people based on false information, based on nothing, to advance a political agenda. And that is what Trump did, right? That there was a report about the car maybe having crossed the border. And so immediately he starts using this horrible, deadly attack before we even know the names of the victims as a cudgel to advance his hateful political agenda against migrants. And it's just, it's horrific. And I think that it actually does matter, because in these moments, there are some people that are turning to him. There's some people that are turning to social media for information, and that matters in these moments.
You gotta love that. You gotta love that. He starts going over all this information about how it's important because there could be IEDs other places. We don't know if he's a lone wolf, if he's just acting alone. But hang on. So what they did right here, essentially, is told you the whole story, but they gave the game away, as a matter of fact, because what happens, they put out this report. Oh, did you catch it? They put out a report saying that truck may have come across the southern border. Oh, well, hang on. So then Donald Trump tweets, blah, 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 blah. The border's bad, blah, 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 blah. So this is the setup, right? This is what they do. These very people put out some information saying this guy may have come across the southern border because it was reported by the FBI. So the mainstream news picks up on this and they air this information, right? So Donald Trump hears this information, repeats this information, and then later when we find out that the guy was an American citizen, they turn that around on Donald Trump and say, oh, look what Donald Trump is saying. This is disinformation. How dare he disinformationize the American people like this? It's just straight disinformation. He's doing it on purpose to exploit a situation we have going on our southern border, blah, 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 blah. So that's the game, right? You gotta love it. So you can get ready for more of this, and this is how they manipulate you, right? This is Donald Trump gets his information from these people, right? When we come to find out it's not true, or maybe he says something that's a little bit off, they take that, exploit that situation, flip it around on Donald Trump. Oh, well, Donald Trump is the fake news over here, acting like Donald Trump is CNN or something like that, or MSNBC. Oh, it's just funny. You gotta love where these people take this information and just the leaps in logic, the mental gymnastics it takes for these people to flip this back around on Donald Trump. I got to give them credit on that. They did a good job in flipping this back around because, once again, like I said, they give Trump the information, he gives it back to everybody else, and then they flip that information around on him to make him out to be the bad guy. This is what they do. This is how they exploit Donald Trump, right? This is why he calls them fake news. Exactly why he calls them fake news, because they'll lie about something, right? It's just great. Like, this is the people on both sides hoax, the bloodbath hoax, for God's sakes, the assassination attempt. Right? They just do all of these things. They just take it and flip it right back around on Donald Trump, and it's so absurd and it's so obscene, if you ask me, because they really believe that we're not going to notice this, that we're not going to notice that, hang on, where did Donald Trump get this information from? He got it from you guys, and now you're flipping that back around on him? This is absurd. But it goes even further than this. There are some truly insane people on MSNBC, Lawrence O'Donnell being chief among those, right? You might think, oh, Rachel Maddow's crazy, and Alex Wagner, and blah, 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 blah. You just start naming these people on MSNBC. But Lawrence O'Donnell is truly one of the worst people on television. Check this out.
New Orleans terrorists, like Timothy McVeigh, reached the rank of sergeant in the United States Army. The simple fact is this country has suffered more deadly terrorism at the hands of American-born citizens who are veterans of the United States military than people who have crossed into this country at the southern border. It is very clear from the evidence that if you want to worry about terrorism in this country, the United States Army is a much bigger problem than the southern border. No one who crossed the southern border attacked the Capitol on January 6th, 4 years ago. But several veterans of the United States military violently attacked the Capitol on January 6th in an act of terrorism intended to terrorize Congress into violating the Constitution and not certifying Joe Biden as the elected president of the United States. With the country reeling from the attack in New Orleans.
Now, there's a little bit more to that clip, but how despicable do you have to be to manipulate everything, right? Like, he's saying, oh, well, we've had more homegrown terrorists than terrorists that have come across that southern border. Is that so? Well, you know what? All those people coming across that southern border might not be committing acts of terrorism that are actually defined by the federal government as terrorism. But look at Tren de Aragua. That's terrorism on a vast scale that they refuse to designate as terrorism. So there you go. Manipulated facts once again. You know, all these people, all these criminals that are coming across that southern border trafficking humans. That, my friends, is terrorism. So I would posit that, yes, there is a lot more terrorism coming across that southern border than anything we've ever produced in the entire history of the United States. Much more. It goes much deeper than this. You got individual criminals terrorizing people, right? I'm not going to name all of these, but you just go look through all the news and find all the criminal aliens that have criminalized themselves and committed acts of crime against the American people. Now, the one thing that's really, really bad about that is none of it should exist. Every single criminal alien that commits an act of crime against an American citizen or against another criminal alien or immigrant should have never happened and was allowed to happen by the federal government, whether it's under Biden or under Donald Trump, because Donald Trump had people coming across that southern border. It wasn't completely secure. We need a wall for that. But who was the biggest opposition to that wall? Democrats. And it's Democrat policy that allows for sanctuary cities where most of these criminal aliens reside and perform their terrorism, if you will. But what he is about to do here is conflate several things, because he just went from January 6th, people crossing the southern border, to the terror attack in New Orleans and the explosion in front of Trump Tower in Las Vegas. But watch, he's really, really sly with this. Check this out.
And those of us with family and friends in New Orleans worried about their safety, the big players in Donald Trump's world, were not talking about New Orleans. They were talking about visas. Former Trump staff member Steve Bannon got in a public argument on Twitter with the owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, that provoked Musk to call Trump supporters like Bannon, quote, unrepentant racists. Musk seemed surprised to discover that there were any racists supporting Donald Trump. Remember the outrage in both the news media and Trump world 8 years ago when candidate for president Hillary Clinton referred to some Trump supporters as, quote, deplorables, the racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. Donald Trump pretended to be deeply offended at Hillary Clinton's accurate description of some Trump supporters. When the richest person Donald Trump has ever met, who also happens to be the richest person in the world, calls Trump voters unrepentant racists, Donald Trump, of course, sided with the rich guy against his own supporters. Donald Trump decided to publicly agree with Elon Musk that we should admit more skilled immigrants into this country, even to take jobs that Americans are eager to do.
Noticed how he emphasized Hillary Clinton said some. Well, she didn't say just some, did she?
You know, to just be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
Okay, so she most definitely said half. That could be defined as some, but it's definitely not defined as some, if you know what I mean, right? But you notice how he conflates these two things. He starts talking about the New Orleans thing and what Trump was saying about about the New Orleans attack. And then he conflates that with something that happened before that. Oh, but they weren't talking about the New Orleans terror attack. They were talking about racists, which happened the week before that. So hang on there, buddy. How could they be talking about something that hasn't happened yet? You notice how he starts conflating all these things and then says, well, Elon Musk calling Steve Bannon unrepentant racist, I believe is what he said. Yeah, comparing that with what Hillary Clinton said, yeah, those two things are vastly different. Oh, and then he goes on to say, well, Trump sided with the rich guy. You love that, huh? Trump sided with the rich guy. Yeah, because Trump's not a racist. Trump is not xenophobic. He agrees we need the H-1B visas. Now, there is a situation with the H-1Bs, the H-1As. There's several of these H-1 or H-2 visas that we give for seasonal work, for just year-round work, high-end jobs. There's several of these, right? But, the H-1Bs specifically, I think is a good thing. It's brain draining the rest of the world. Now, should that be revised a little bit, that system? Sure. Sure, it should be revised a little bit because there are some stipulations in there that kind of make it. I can see where the indentured servant argument comes from. If you come over on one of those H-1Bs and you work for this certain company, if you get fired or decide to quit from that company, go to another company, or just decide to quit outright, that visa is revoked. You're now an illegal immigrant in this country. So I think that should be revised a little bit. If you stay at a company for X amount of time, or you should at least be allowed to swap companies or just quit outright to look for another job if you would like to do that. Now, a lot of people, they say, well, hang on. They pay these people at below the standard rate for whatever the position may be. That's not really true. That's not really true. You go and look at the statistics. The statistics don't bear that out. Sure, you have anecdotes of this, but you have other anecdotes of some of these H-1B visas getting paid more than what the standard going rate for whatever position it is. So, yeah, the system needs to be revised a little bit, but I think it's a good system, right? I can't stand this idea that our immigration system is broken. I don't believe it's broken. There are some issues with it. We do need some reforms. Sure, grant that. But the system itself is not broken. It's designed to allow a certain amount of people in, blah, 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 blah. Our southern border is broken. I will say that. It's wide open. We've never had a solid southern border. I think we do need that wall in many places. I don't think there needs to be a continuous wall all the way across, right? Because there's some places where you're just not going to cross into the United States from Mexico. But that's neither here nor there. This video was about media manipulation, so you gotta love how they play the game. So you gotta watch these people. Get ready for this for the next 4 years. They're gonna take something that Trump says and try to flip it around on him. Be diligent, or at least subscribe to this channel if you do that, because I'm gonna stay on top of all of this garbage. How they manipulate everything, because these people are the manipulators in chief. I don't know when it happened. I imagine it was slowly progressing from telling the American people the facts, what's going on in reality in the world, what happened over here, to lying to everybody, manipulating everything to portray this narrative that is whatever the hell they want it to be, divorced from reality somewhat in certain cases and completely in other cases. It's absurd, and I can't stand it, and that's the whole reason for my existence, y'all. That's what I'm here to do, is point these things out. So y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got for this one. Y'all try to have a good day and stay logical. Peace.